Welcome to Ars Libri, an everyman's journey through Western literature, where we explore the literary arts book by book, reading, retelling, and reclaiming our rich heritage. Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales, there are many of them, and they were compiled in the 1800s. The biggest way that I see that they're different than the Grimm's is that they're long. They're lengthy, and they're not short little tales. And I think that Hans Christian Andersen either compiled them from others or he made a lot of them up, which is also different. I think the Grimm's were actually almost strictly compiling, whereas Hans Christian Andersen was actually writing some of these. There are many stories, and we chose 10 of the most well-known ones because going through all the rest that are less known is an endless task. They're really good. We have a few copies of this book, and the books are large. You can get standalone copies of these individually.
Yeah, those can be really fun with illustrations and things.
Yeah, so it's fun to collect the pretty ones individually. What we're going to do is go through each of the stories one by one and just retell the story a little bit and talk about them as we go through them. The first one is The Little Mermaid. Almost everybody knows this story, but I'll just recap real quick.
Most people know at least one version of the story.
One version of the story, right. Well, when I grew up, I watched the Disney cartoon.
Yeah.
And the dancing crabs, kiss the girl, and all this stuff. But this real story is that a young mermaid has the opportunity to go up above the waters and look about when she turns 15, and she does, and she sees a young prince that's very handsome, and she decides she wants to throw everything away to go try to become his bride. And she also wants a soul. She wants to be like humans and have an immortal soul, which mermaids don't have. And she wants to see the world above, ships and castles and things. And so she goes back and talks to a witch who gives her a potion made of blood and all kinds of other things. And she has to give up her own voice to do this. And so she does. And she loses her tail and gains legs, and there she is on the shore. And she tries to gain the love of this prince. And she actually becomes the companion of the prince. And they're both 15 or 16 or 17 or so. And the prince brings her around everywhere he goes and treats her almost like a mix between a pet and a best friend and a girlfriend. And I emphasize pet because the book says that he had her sleep at the foot of his door or at the threshold of his door to his room. And he brought her around everywhere he went as though she was just a nice little cute dog that followed her.
Yeah, it's like there was a stray, and it happened to be the most beautiful little puppy dog he'd ever seen, and he just couldn't help but take it in and love it
and
as
kiss
his
it
favorite.
And hug it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And he treated her basically like she wasn't a human, but a pet. And she is just in love with him and thinks the world of him and looks up to him and admires him. And she actually had saved him in the shipwreck that he was on when she first came up and looked around on her 15th birthday. And she fell in love with him from that moment and saved his life and brought him ashore, and he never knew it was her. So she saved his life, and now she wants to be his wife. But if she is unable to get his love, then she dies, essentially.
Her heart will break the day he weds someone else.
Another.
Or the night.
Yeah. And it happens that the prince is forced by his parents to find a bride from another kingdom, and he goes and finds this woman, instantly falls in love with her, and says, she looks just like the woman who I think saved me long ago, not knowing that it's her, that it's the mermaid girl. And he marries her, this other princess, on a ship, and they're all sailing and having a great time, and the princess, and the mermaid knows this is her last night. Tomorrow she'll be dead. And so she just kind of dances the night away. And then as the evening is wearing on and the morning is coming, her sisters show up and say, hey, we sacrificed our hair to the witch who made this knife. If you take the knife and stab the prince and kill him, then you will get your life back. The curse will not fall upon you, and you'll be able to get your tail back and come be a mermaid again and live out your couple hundred years of life with us. Well, the mermaid decides not to do that. She decides, no, I'd rather myself die and the prince live. And it's this act of sacrifice because of love. And there's this theme throughout a lot of these stories that the redeeming power of love. Mm-hmm. Love somehow achieves this greatness. It rises up and achieves greatness. And so she does this and she decides, no, I'd rather die. And then she flings herself overboard, but instead of hitting the waves, she finds that she's somehow oddly transcending and floating above all of that. She doesn't know what's going on. But eventually there's these other angelic or ethereal beings that tell her, you've become an immortal soul. Because although mermaids don't have souls, they can gain them in two ways, actually, not one. You can either be loved by a human who marries you, or you can do some kind of great sacrificial deed for the sake of love, like you just did. Mm. And now you become an immortal soul, and the next stage of your life is ascending into the kingdom of heaven. Mm-hmm. And so that's the rest of her journey, but the book stops there. Yeah,
it's actually another 300-year period before she can get her soul an entrance into heaven.
Okay.
And so it's very, a lot of the themes in the stories are very Catholic. So it's almost like a purgatory before she gets to go to heaven.
She has to earn her way through good deeds. And they even said that these angel beings are pre-angel soul beings go about on earth seeking to do good, and they go about on earth looking to find good children. Mm-hmm. And whenever they come into a house, if the child is good, a year is taken off of their time of waiting to get into heaven. But if they find that the child is bad, they cry. And for every tear that drops, another day is added to their time of waiting to get into heaven. So children, you must be very good for the sake of the mermaid souls who are floating around hoping to get into heaven.
Maidens of the air or something like that.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of his stories do have little endings like that apply to the children who are listening. Of like, this is why we should be good. I mean, they're not very overly moralistic, but they are there, which is nice.
So it's got a redemptive theme to it, which is really good. And that's missing, I think, in the Disney version, the animated film 1989.
Yes.
That's not there. It's a romantic theme, and it's romantic, strongly romantic. Right. Even for children. I remember watching it when I was young, and I'm too young to even understand romance. But I just remembered at that age, ooh, nasty girls. I don't want to watch that.
It's all about a kiss.
Yeah, right.
Like the whole movie is about a kiss. Getting him to kiss her.
That's the whole thing. It's not about marriage, though.
Right.
It's about the kiss. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe marriage comes at some point, but it's about kiss. And the whole song is kiss the girl, kiss the girl. And I remember being 5 or 10 watching it thinking, no. But this one from Hans Christian Andersen, the original one, there are some serious themes. For instance, the mermaid girl, she really, really feels passionately for this prince. But not in a way that's racy or some kind of improper. She just feels so passionately for this prince that she's willing to forego her to leave her family. She's willing to leave her sisters, her whole world. I'm thinking, for instance, is there not love underneath the water? Do they not have marriages down there? They must, because there's a king and queen, and they had children. And so she's thinking, I'm going to forego all of this down here. The palace, my prestige, my father's love. I'm going to abandon everything on a gamble.
Right.
That she even finds the prince again, because the prince has never expressed any. He doesn't even know who she is. Mm-hmm. It is really, it's worse than Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet at least reciprocated love before they abandoned their families and ruined their lives. This girl has nothing coming back to her by way of a guarantee or a promise or even a hint. And she feels so strongly that she's going to give it all up, and so devotedly. It's not just a love, it's like a devotion and a loyalty to this guy. And you feel it when you read. You're like, gosh, this deserves reciprocation. Like, she deserves the love from this guy. And you get angry at the prince. At least I do.
I get angry at the witch a lot because she stole her voice. It was like the witch knew that this was never going to work as she's doing it. As she's taking these things from the mermaid, she knows it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It makes me angry.
She took the voice.
Yeah.
The witch basically enabled it. The witch should have said, no, I'm not going to help you. This is foolish. The witch even knew how it was going to end. She said, you're going to suffer for this, but I'll do it anyway because you'll have your way. That's what she said. And I thought, no, don't do it. This is crazy. But I said that the prince upsets me because he treats her in such a petty manner and keeps her nearby. Right. She dances for him. She does all kinds of, he dotes upon her. He's misleading her. Yeah. Leading someone on like that, especially when she's so obviously devoted to you. Her eyes were so expressive, the story said.
And it also says once she throws herself overboard, the prince and his bride, they knew that she had done that. Yeah. And it's like he knew that she was going to break her heart over him.
He knew.
Yeah.
He knew. The way he treated her, it was clearly just a pet subject, toy thing that he
She existed entirely for his pleasure.
Yeah.
Like that was it.
Yeah.
And she was okay with that for a long time.
Yeah, I know. This is the danger.
Oh, man.
A naive girl gets objectified and used and abused and treated like a little toy thing. And her heart is just... And she runs to this guy and says, here's my heart. And he just puts it on a little chain and dangles it and says, oh, that's pretty. Thank you. Anyway, and throws it off. Yeah. It's tragic. It's tragic. And the way that the world will teach you to avoid that, teach women to avoid that, is harden your heart. Be really hard. Or never love. Or never trust a man. I would just say, first of all, don't abandon your father. That's the first thing she did.
Right.
She abandoned her father and mother and her sisters and her whole world.
Yeah.
She abandoned all of it.
Yeah, like even before the prince knew she existed, it says that she loved him more than father or mother.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, right there, that's where she went wrong.
Yeah.
That should not be.
Right.
Like, seemed to be clear to me was that she had improper loves, or at least wrongly ordered loves. And she wasn't satisfied with her lot, with her nature, with her position in life. I mean, she was a princess. Yeah. She was the daughter of a king. She could have had anything. But she set her heart on something that did not belong to her, that she should not have desired. It was something other than herself. And I feel like that's a recipe for what happened. Like, that was going to lead back, like, to a bad end, obviously. Like, of course, it could not have ended well. I did like the idea of the mermaid being able to get a soul through love with a human, because it communicates the idea of two becoming one and the idea of a soulmate. Like a soul mate is someone who shares a soul. And I thought, okay, that was a neat way of making a story out of this, that like there was so much love that the soul kind of spills over to another. Yes. You know, and I thought, okay, that's a cool idea. It didn't work in this story, but that was a neat idea. But,
I don't like the idea of soulmates. I don't think there's any kind of soulmate thing. I mean, maybe the two become one. I don't know. But in the story, the way that a mermaid gets a soul is that if the other person loves the mermaid, his soul pours into hers and creates another. That's how it's supposed to happen. But somehow she ended up getting one without that happening. Yeah. Or becoming one without that happening somehow. But it's a nice thought. The ugly duckling. Basically, a duck has a bunch of eggs, and one of them is larger than the others. All of them hatch except the large one. Then the large one hatches afterwards. And it's ugly. And it doesn't fit in. It doesn't fit in among all the other animals in that area. Some little girl comes and feeds the animals, and even the girl thinks, "Ooh, you're ugly," and kicks at it. And it flies away and spends time elsewhere, like a whole season. And eventually it flies and thinks, I'm going to go find another place to live. When it gets to this other place, there's some water there, and it lands. It sees some swans, beautiful swans, and thinks those are the most majestic beings ever. But I don't want to live anymore because I'm ugly. Let me just go towards them and hopefully they'll just kill me. That's the story in Hans Christian Andersen. So it's a little more raw than maybe getting a story.
Okay. I didn't understand it that way. It didn't seem suicidal so much as
it said
the beauty was so great that he didn't care if they killed him. He just was drawn to it so much.
Okay.
I didn't seem like he was just like wanting to die.
I thought he said he wanted to die. Maybe the version I have is different.
Okay, maybe, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he said he wanted to die.
He was at a low point in his life.
He was at a low point in life. Okay. Well, it just goes to show though that these tales are a bit raw for our tastes. Mm-hmm. In our medicated, counseled age that we live in, we no, never talk about it, never take your life. Well, in these tales, for children, the little duck doesn't care if he lives or dies. Neither does the mermaid. Mm-hmm. And in the tale that I read, I'm pretty sure he said, let me just go, hope maybe they'll kill me. I don't know. I don't want to be here anymore. Mm. Anyway, he goes to these other swans and they come and start nosing him and necking him. And he looks down on the water and sees he has become a swan. And that's what he was all along. Now, this is something important about this tale. Usually people will say, oh, it's the misfit outcast that was misunderstood and marginalized, who actually had a secret beauty that if he just found himself, he accepted himself one day, and others, not his original family, his original family, his original people hated him and were bigoted and intolerant, and he had to fly away to a new community before he found acceptance. That's actually not what is happening in this story, and it's really, really, really important to get this. Mm-hmm. He was a swan all along. Somehow animals do this, by the way. Some animals will swap eggs. Not the duck herself. Other birds or something will come and grab eggs and move them around. For some reason, it just happens in nature. This egg was in the wrong place. And it was born in the wrong place among the wrong people. He was never among his own people. Mm-hmm. And that's why he felt like he didn't belong. He didn't belong because he didn't.
Oh, this is like Prince Kor.
Yes.
And the Horse and His Boy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He didn't belong.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he was from the north. Mm-hmm. And he always felt the longing for it.
And he looked odd, off. He didn't look like everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
And he didn't act like everybody else either. He had different principles in his bones. Mm-hmm. But that's the important point here with the ugly duckling. It's not about accepting the marginalized and accepting the weird people as normal. Like there's no normal, everybody fits in. No, he was actually a different species. A different bird. He was a different bird altogether. He actually didn't belong. So this story is not about the ugly duckling being beautiful on the inside, for instance. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's not. He actually is ugly.
Yeah.
On the outside. He really is. And he becomes beautiful by transformation, not by expressing his inner authentic self, not by accepting himself as he is. He transforms into something beautiful because that's naturally how his growth in nature work.
Right. It's not like he has to trick people into changing their perception of him or redefining beauty.
Right.
To accept him as ugly.
Right. To think that ugliness is really beautiful.
Right.
Or that outward appearances don't matter because it's just the inward person. Mm-hmm. No, actually he was ugly and then he was accepted because he was beautiful now. Mm-hmm. The reason the other swans nudged and necked him and kind of bowed to him, in fact, the story ends with all of the other birds recognizing you have become the most beautiful thing we've ever seen.
Right.
On the outside. Mm-hmm. It says nothing about his character. He's just physically beautiful now. So he changed, he morphed. He started out as ugly, really and truly ugly. And people accepted him afterward because he became objectively beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I think the point could also be made that what is unfamiliar is ugly. So if he had grown up around swans, none of the other swans would have thought him ugly.
Right.
They wouldn't have. Like, he wouldn't have been ugly. He would have just looked like all of his brothers and sisters, and it would have been fine. But if forced to be a duckling, if forced to grow up, then everyone does think him ugly. But he actually technically wasn't ugly.
No, he was ugly.
He was ugly. Okay, maybe. Okay.
He was ugly. Look, here's how it worked with the swans. They are born ugly and they become beautiful. They come out and they're like, oh, you're ugly. Oh my gosh. And the mom was like, don't worry, he'll grow out of it. Yeah. The kid's got a big head. Don't worry. We all had big heads when we were born. There's some babies that are born and you think, well, I mean, good luck. I hope, God bless you and may his face someday shine upon you.
It's like that trope. That's awful. But it's like that trope in the movies where it's like you're in high school and there's the ugly girl who's not much to look at. And then they meet again as adults and she's gorgeous. Right. It's like, that's what's happening here.
Gorgeous.
She starts out ugly, but then she develops and everyone finally loves her.
Usually those movies, though, they find some girl who, if she just let her hair down and put some makeup on and took her glasses off, she'd go from...
I lost the braces.
She'd go from a 5 to a 7 or 8 or something.
It's like, oh my goodness, she's beautiful. Wow.
Right.
Didn't see that.
Sorry for using the objective scale, but that's how guys think. It's just true.
Another thing I liked about this story is that it shows that our loves, the things that we like and naturally gravitate to, are according to our nature.
Oh, yeah.
They're all in line, with our nature. Mm-hmm. So during the duckling's travels, as he's running around trying not to die, trying not to be killed by people, there's a bad storm and he kind of worms his way into an old woman's house. Mm-hmm. And there's a cat and a chicken who live with the old woman. And the cat and the chicken are kind of baffled by the duckling, the swan, but the duckling's behavior. They're like, you should try purring. Yeah. Or you should try squawking or flapping your wings or, different things. And the duckling is confused. He's like, why would I do that? Right. But then he sees water and he has this irresistible urge to go swim, to go dive, to just go down deep in the water. And the cat and the chicken are like, what's wrong with you? Mm-hmm. Like, you should just listen to us. We're much wiser. You don't need to go and do all of those things. But it was in his nature to want that and to love that. Mm-hmm. And that's so very true in humans. It's like when boys and girls are born, the girls know exactly what to do with a baby doll. They know how to hold it and put it to bed.
They just know.
And boys are mesmerized by trucks and by balls. Yeah. And, it's just, it happens.
This is true for us. If any listeners are thinking this is not true, we have a bunch of girls and then we ended up with a boy at the end. So our house is filled with girl stuff. And then the boy shows up and he wants nothing to do with it. We don't force this. There's just a big bin of toys. He wants the only 2 trucks in our house that we happen to have. Somebody gave them to us. I don't know how we got them. Little bitty trucks. That's what he wants. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want the dolls. He doesn't want the other things, the parasols and whatever. Yeah,
the girls take maybe a baby doll or a stuffed animal to sleep at night, and he takes a truck.
Yeah, he sleeps with the truck. He sleeps with the truck, right. But you mentioned the house that the duckling went into. Mm-hmm. I thought it was funny when he said he wanted to go back into the water. Right. And the cat or the hen was talking to him and said, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to listen to people wiser than you. The cat, look at the cat over there. Ask him if he wants to get into the water. Yes. He'll tell you absolutely not. Ask the old lady. Look at the old lady. You think she likes swimming in the water? Absolutely not. She's wiser than the cat. Would I get in the water? I doubt it. And you're thinking, well, of course, none of you, a cat doesn't like water. Right. Old women don't go jump in ponds. Mm-mm. And then this other creature doesn't want to get in there.
Yeah, they don't get in water.
But the swan loves it. Mm-hmm. And that's also important, like you mentioned, the nature of this thing. It's not that the duckling doesn't belong among the ducks because it's ugly or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's not a duck. Right. It doesn't belong because of its nature. Right. Its very nature. That's something that you find in the fairy tales. Yes. A respect of nature. Mm-hmm. They think nature is real. Yes. And this is what I meant in the previous episode or 2 when I said the fairy tales are closer to reality than our modern world because we break and bend and destroy and disregard nature. Mm-hmm. We chop it into pieces and put it back together. This is Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. This is a lot of the stuff going on today in the news about people with their identities and their bodies changing themselves. We destroy nature and bend it back to our own. We act like it's not real. The myths look at nature and think it's real and it's there and it doesn't change.
And they see the laws that will be obeyed.
There are laws. There may be fairies, but they obey laws.
Right.
Whereas in our world, we have only humans, but we break all the laws of nature and of reality. It's very important to get this.
Yeah, and also, I like that when the duckling finally sees these beautiful birds flying and he's drawn to them, he finds them in the water, he goes to them, and it's before he knows that he's one of them. It's like, but he cannot not go. He must go to his own kind and be with his own people. And then, of course, he discovers he's one of them. But that explains the desire that was already there.
Yeah.
You know?
These stories have some deep stuff in them.
Right.
What were our ancestors trying to tell us?
Right.
He doesn't fit in over there, but he does over here. And he knows it in his bones without ever having been taught it.
Right. Right. And it ends kind of with a small little moral of like, he'll never take his beauty for granted.
Right.
Because he lived so long as an ugly duckling.
Right.
He will now,
He's humble.
he doesn't have to worry, about becoming proud, even though he's getting all of this admiration. It's because he thought of himself as ugly for so long.
Yeah. The Emperor's New Clothes. In The Emperor's New Clothes, a vain emperor is tricked into parading without clothes, believing he wears invisible clothes, and he exposes himself to folly and pretense. Basically, these weavers come to town. They're called cheats in the story. Some cheats come to town and let out as though they're weavers and they can weave special, beautiful clothes. And the clothes that they can weave, supposedly, are such that only those who are fit for their office are able to behold them. So if you are fit for the office that you hold, you are able to view the clothing that we can weave. But if you're not fit, you're just going to see invisible clothing. You're not going to see anything. And the king thinks, well, this is wonderful. I have to see this. And so he hires the weavers to make some clothes for him. And night and day, they toil at the looms furiously, but you can't see anything. And they're threading needles with invisible silk or thread. And the whole time, they're buying more gold and more silk and more threads and stuffing it into their pockets. But then they finally weave these clothes. And the king sends his most trusted, honest, long-standing advisor to go look at the clothes and report back to him. And the man walks in, and the weavers are there, and they hold up the trousers. And the man thinks, am I unfit for my office? I can see nothing. He thinks this. But then he thinks, I can't let this out. I can't let people know that I'm unfit. So he says, wow, they're right, beautiful clothes. They're amazing. I'm dazzled. And then the weavers begin to talk about, look at the pattern right here and look at what we did with the stitching. And the man's like, oh yes, I mean, ingenious. And he goes back to the king and tells him that. And so the king, with his whole entourage, comes down to look. And every man of them, even the king thinks, am I unfit for my office? I can't see it. Oh no, I can't let this out. And he turns to his advisors and says, what do you think, gentlemen? And they're all like, wow, it's a fantastic, sire. I mean, I've never seen such beauty. Look at the train of the cloak and how it just rolls down. And the king's like, yes, it's very beautiful. I shall wear them at the next parade. And so the next day comes and the weavers say, now they're light as a feather. You won't even feel that they're on, So they hold up the sleeve and he puts his arm through the sleeve. And he puts the trousers on one leg at a time. Now, of course, the king, people say that he walked naked, but this is actually not accurate. He had undergarments on. In the story, at least the one I read, he had undergarments on. Everybody wore undergarments. You don't just wear trousers without undergarments. Nobody does this today. Nobody did it back then. So he walked in his undergarments, essentially, through the streets. That's what he did. He wasn't nude. But anyway, he walks through the streets and everybody is admiring and they know the story. They know what this cloth is supposed to be. Everybody understands, the whole kingdom. And so everybody thinks, am I unfit for my office? Oh my gosh, no, like, beautiful, sire, beautiful, amazing, majesty. And then there's one child who says, he's got no clothes on. and the child's dad says, right, son, he has no clothes on. The spell just breaks right there. Everybody starts to realize, but here's what's interesting. The common people all began to say this, and it spread among the common people. And they all began admitting it openly and saying it openly in front of the king, in front of everybody. He's got no clothes on. And the king heard it. And all his important retainers and officials heard it. But all of those men thought, we have to keep up the pretense. We can't admit it. Go on and finish the parade as necessary. There are a few important things to note here. One is that mass societies, mass populations can sometimes go along with a lie. A lie so obvious and so bold and backed up with such force that people will trick themselves into believing it. People will lie to themselves to believe it. There's a saying that goes, it's difficult to get a man to believe what his paycheck depends upon him not believing. Specifically, though, in this instance, it was led by the elites, by the experts, by the ruling classes.
Right, the trusty old minister who likely was fit for his job.
Right.
Was the biggest fool of all of them because he is the one who started it. He should have walked into that room and immediately called it for what it was.
Yeah.
And so he was wise, but that one act is what made him a fool, for doing that. But it was like you said, it was because his paycheck, his prestige, all of these things depended on it. And his vanity was touched because they said not only it's either you're unfit for your office or you're a fool. And so he's thinking, I'm not a fool. Yeah. There's no way I'm a fool. And so that was the hardest thing for everyone there to accept, was that they were a fool.
Right.
But it's funny because in them doing this, they all become fools.
Right.
It's ironic there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was led by the elites, the credentialed, the degreed people who control the institutions in society and set the rules. The people who know better than you and you should just listen to them. Don't question. Just go along. We experienced that a few years ago.
Yeah, you're
with
not allowed to actually think.
Pandemic. Right.
Right.
You can't think for yourself. You need to just go along with what you're being told. But here's the thing too. The people who are in positions of power have something to lose. And it's often in those positions that you find yourself most compromised with regard to telling the truth. If you're in a position of power or leadership or respect or just money, you're getting money for this, it's very difficult to go against those who are giving you that position or supporting you or whatever. You're going to say what is necessary to keep yourself in that office, in that position. The common people are in the exact opposite position.
Right.
They're the ones who saw through it all and said it. They didn't have the careers, the positions of power to maintain. They had nothing to lose or gain. And they weren't smarter than the ministers. It's not that. They just had nothing holding them back from telling the truth as it was.
Right.
And that's extremely important. We have people that are scholars today, for instance, people who are teachers, academics, scientists, people who do research and write in the journals, in the media, they write the news, all kinds of things. People who talk, the talking classes, the literati, the chatterati classes, they have to say things in a certain way, else they be deemed unfit for their positions. So when you have big events that happen in history, in our lives, people have to speak a certain way. Like everybody at a conservative journalist website or a liberal journalist website, a media news organization, they have to say things a certain way or they'll be fired. They can't just tell the truth as it actually is. When somebody gets shot, for instance.
Right.
This just happened yesterday in the news. this episode will come out weeks after the event, but just yesterday there was a shooting, and of course everybody's explaining it the way that their side, their narrative already dictates that it has to happen. Mm-hmm. This is why it's difficult to find truth in the halls of institutions of power, of any sort of power, government, media, news, entertainment, whatever, because the people who are talking have something to lose if they get it wrong,
right,
according to their side. It's the common people, not because they're smarter, but because they have nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. The common people will actually say it how it is. If you want to hear what America actually believes, don't go read newspapers. Just go to the local Walmart or something, go talk to people. And you'll find people telling it how it is. That's how people think. They got nothing to lose, and they'll just say it. He has no clothes on, whereas everybody else thinks, he has no clothes on, but I can't say that because I'm going to lose my power.
Right.
And that's serious because you have historians writing history books about what happened in the past. You have professors and teachers teaching classes to students everywhere. You have filmmakers and movie producers and actors writing things and saying things, and they have to say it a certain way because if they don't, they're never going to get hired again. Mm-hmm. They're never going to play in a movie again. They're never going to teach again. And this happens all the time.
Yeah, and the more they do it, the more they believe it themselves. You know, it's like the more that you lie, the more that you tell a lie, like the sooner you actually believe the lie. Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah.
I think it's important, though, that it was a child who was the one to call all of this out. You know, it's like you have to become like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. And I think some of that is because a child knows right and wrong. You know, like when they've done something wrong, they know they've done something wrong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If they've been raised right. You know, they know they've done something wrong. And so this child has nothing holding him back. He's not worried about what other people are thinking of him. Right. He's not worried about being called a fool. He's a child. Right. Nobody thinks he's anything anyway. So he was the one who could call it like it is. Right. And I think that's in some way how we're called to be. You know, we're supposed to be able to tell things like it is and not be so concerned about peer influence or social climbing or all of these things, you know.
There used to be a show, I forget who hosted it. There used to be a show in the 90s, I think, called Children Say the Darndest Things.
Oh my goodness.
And they would just bring kids on and just let them rip. And it was just so funny. The kids would say things. I don't know how they got them always to say funny things, though.
One of the questions, you know, was, what did your mother tell you not to say?
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And so that would always bring it out.
Yeah.
Because, of course, they would just say it. They would say exactly what their mother told them not to say.
I'm not going to repeat what happens in this movie, but there's a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger called Kindergarten Cop, where he becomes a kindergarten teacher undercover. He's this big guy with these little bitty kids. And he has this moment where he's teaching and he says, "Who is your father and what did he do?" You know, he's talking in his weird way. And the children start saying things. It is hilarious, stuff they say. He shuts it down pretty quickly because it gets out of hand. But children will just talk if you let them, and they'll say things. This is what happens here. It's the adults, it's the credentialed, it's the leaders who bend the truth to save themselves. And that's a bad leader. And not just that, when they were caught, they kept going with the lie. They knew it was a lie. They knew they had lied. They knew that they had been duped. They knew that we knew that they were lying. Okay, everybody knew. But they kept lying. This is actually something I think Orwell says. We know they're lying. They know they're lying. They know that we know that they're lying. We know that they know that we know that they're lying. But they keep lying. That's exactly what happens here. Yeah. Exactly. This is not something that came about in the statist tyranny regimes of the 20th century. For instance, this is a story from the 1800s. Yeah. This is long ago. There have always been cases where masses of people have just gone along with obvious lies.
There is a lot of irony in the story, though, because the emperor was so concerned with being thought unfit for his role that he, believes a lie, right? But it was because he actually was unfit for his role that this happened. He had this weird obsession with clothing, and he allowed himself to be duped. And so these swindlers, these cheats, they actually did expose him. as being unfit.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing that he was trying not.
Irony.
Yeah, exactly.
The next story is the Snow Queen. Basically, a girl named Gerda journeys to rescue her brother, or her neighbor, Kai, some versions its brother, from the icy Snow Queen. And before all this happens, there is a demon who makes a mirror, and the mirror turns everything to its opposite. So if something is beautiful, you see it as ugly. If something is lovely, you see it as disgusting. And he goes around looking at everything through the mirror, and then some of the other demons take it up to heaven, or they try to. And on the way up to heaven, the mirror slips out of their hands and shatters, and all the shards splinter and run all over the world and get into things, into people's eyes and into people's hearts. And 2 of these shards one day got into Kay. As the story progresses, Kay is playing one day in the square, and he ties his sled to a sleigh, to somebody's sleigh, and the sleigh takes off and runs around the square with him once or twice, and he's loving it, but then it goes out of town. And he wants to get off, but he can't. And the woman driving it is this Snow Queen that apparently he saw through a window one day as the snow flurry were going around, and he saw them turn into a woman. And now he sees her again, and it's her. She actually invites him to come sit in the sleigh at some point, and she takes off with him to her castle or her wherever, far, far away in the north. Some time passes, and everybody thinks that Kay is dead. But Gerda is told by some sparrows or birds to go find him. So she goes to find him. She ends up going to this witch's house. She doesn't know it's a witch. And the witch takes her in for a while and dupes her through some spells. And she snaps out of it eventually by seeing some roses. And the roses call out to her and say something like, "Don't forget your friend or your neighbor brother, Kay. Go find him." And so she journeys on again, and she comes to another old woman.
So after leaving the old woman, who was kind of a kindly old witch, she escapes nonetheless and meets a crow. And she asks the crow, "Have you seen Kay?" And he says, "Well, I saw a young boy, a handsome young boy." And she's like, "Oh, that must have been him."
Yeah.
And it turns out that he's going to marry a princess, and it's not Kay, so she has to continue on her way. She leaves the palace, though. They were very kind to her. They gave her a carriage and everything. But as she's traveling, a band of robbers stops her because they want her carriage and all of her fine things. And they're getting ready to kill her when a little girl of the robbers says, "No, I want her to be my friend. She's going to come with me and give me all of her fine things. You can't kill her." And so she sort of makes a friend who eventually helps her escape on a reindeer.
A reindeer.
So she and the reindeer together journey where it's getting colder and colder and colder, and they meet an old woman who tells them, "Oh, you have a lot farther to go." And they go to another old woman who tells them, "Okay, it's not too much farther from here to the Snow Queen's palace," which of course is in the deepest winter, the deepest Arctic,
far,
cold
far north
place, and everything is lit by the northern lights. You know, it's extremely north and cold.
When she gets there, though, the reindeer takes off to go ask for more instructions from the last old lady that sent the reindeer on the way. And she goes forward and finds that the castle thing is guarded by these monster demon things. And then she breathes heavily, and her breath turns into or calls forth legions of angels.
She also says the Lord's Prayer right before this happens.
She says the Lord's Prayer.
I love this scene.
And she breathes out, and then these angels arise and fight a battle for her to overthrow all these monsters that let her go forward into the castle. Her breath.
Yeah, it's battles of the air, because it's like the snow flurries that turn into these beasts and monsters. And then it's her breath, and after saying this prayer, that turn into the angels that suddenly she can see are there with her. It says there was a legion there fighting for her to get in.
Yeah. And when she gets in, she finds her brother alone because the Snow Queen went out riding or something and told her brother or her neighbor, Kay, to use some shards of ice to spell the word eternity. And he's trying to do that. And he's so focused on making this little puzzle letter thing that he doesn't realize that he's freezing to death. And she comes, and he doesn't even recognize her because of the shards of glass that are in his heart and his eyes. She hugs him and begins sobbing on him, and her tears somehow leak into his heart and free the shard of glass from his heart. Then he realizes she's there, and he begins crying. And his tears push the piece of mirror glass out of his eyes, and finally he can see things as they really are. And then they both make their escape.
Mm-hmm. So what did you make of the part that shows up at the end where it's all about reason? That was amazing. Okay. So at the end, when he's playing with the shards of ice, it says he was playing in an area called the Queen's Mirror of Reason. And it was because of this mirror of reason that he was struggling, and he could never get that word. And so it pits reason against eternity as, not as enemies, but as almost an antithesis. And I think throughout the whole story, we see there's a few lines where Kay, after the shards get in his heart and eye, he becomes very proud of the fact that he can do math, arithmetic in his head, even fractions, and the things that he finds important change. He no longer cares about the roses that he and Gerda had tended.
He grabs them at the beginning and throws them down.
Right, he destroys them.
Right.
And so his interests totally change. And I think what Hans is showing us is that Kay has given himself over to reason as like a vying God.
Rationalism.
Yes.
Not just reason. Reason is good, but rationalism.
Right. Like truth is good. Truth is God's. But to make reason...
This is important.
Yeah. To make reason God is like what he was doing. And that's what, obviously, it's what men try to do. They make reason the explainer of all things and almost the sustainer of all things. And so it does become a rival God as the creator of the universe.
This was the reaction to the Enlightenment during the 1800s. It was called Romanticism.
Right.
Some movements were called Transcendentalism. There was all kinds of religious fervor, but all of these were ways of saying, no, there's more than just the material world. There's more than just logic and reason. There's imagination, there are feelings, there's the transcendental, there's the divine.
Right. And Kay could no longer grasp eternity anymore because eternity is an immaterial life and it's immortality, and you cannot explain that with reason.
Yeah, and mind blown.
Yes.
G.K. Chesterton talks about this in an essay that we're going to read. He talks about how there's the madmen today who are insane because they're rationalists and everything must have a rational explanation. And then there's the sane man who admits a mystery at the center of the universe, God, the divine, the supernatural. And if you admit that mystery, everything else falls into place. So if you admit eternity, the infinite, the divine, mystery, myth even, legend, imagination, fairy tales, if you admit this, then everything else falls into place. But if you deny that and say there's only the material, rational universe, there's nothing else, everything is explained mathematically, you can't fit eternity into your head. Your head will explode.
Yeah, and at the end of the story, the little moralism that's there is, except you become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. And there's a sense of reason being the thing that keeps us from being childlike. Reason becomes the arbiter and judge of all things, and it steals the wonder of childhood from our hearts. You have to have every last thing nailed down. We see this a lot of times with theology. People want to have every last bit of theology tucked away, categorized, nailed down, all of it. And at some point, it's like you lose your original faith and wonder of the gospel and the actual magic that's at the center of it.
I have to admit that I feel that way. I studied theology a lot. I went to seminary. Actually, I studied more theology before and after seminary than I did in seminary. So I'm just saying that I did make a professional academic study of this. But my point is, in the study of the simplicity of God, specifically, that theology, to me, seems like we're opening up the Godhead and trying to look inside of it and put it in logical order. And to me, it's like we're treading somewhere beyond Scripture to some degree when we get into that realm of talking about God. It's okay to say he's infinite, it's okay to say he's pure, he's love, but there's sometimes when theology gets to a place where we, in our need to explain, treads too far. And I have read that stuff. I've read Aquinas. I've read other people on this topic, but I want to back off a little bit from that. But I get the broader point here. There's eternity and the infinite, the divine. We cannot fit that inside of our heads.
Yeah.
What we need to do, what Chesterton says, is put our heads in the clouds, literally, and just enjoy. Now, it doesn't mean that what we have isn't true. What God tells us in the Bible is true. There are some funny comments that I read, by the way. I looked at this story just around. Whenever I read a story like this, I go look around and see what others are saying. So I'll just read some of these comments. Get your reaction.
Oh boy.
One is it reminds people of Disney's Frozen, the movie Frozen.
Oh, okay.
Another is it reminds people of the White Witch from Narnia.
Yes, there were very much those vibes when she's in the sleigh. And she takes him under her coat.
Yep,
it was
White
like,
Witch.
oh, well, that's Edmund.
Turkish Delight and Edmund. Yes. The other is trust no adults. Almost every adult in this story is completely untrustworthy.
Wow.
Except for the one or two ladies in the camps up north.
And the grandmother.
That's what I mean, the ladies.
That is a fair point. That is a fair point. Because the whole point of the story, I think, is to be childlike. You know, it's adults who have embraced reason. And it says to become like a child. So that's a fair point.
The adults. Don't follow beautiful women into blizzards.
Valid.
Just a point of reference here for everyone. Guys, young men, if you're in a blizzard and there's a beautiful woman who's beckoning you to follow her into the woods, don't do it. It's just going to end bad. It's funny. You might think you'll never need this piece of advice, but you never know.
That's true.
You never know. It might happen that you're lost in Austria on the mountains in a blizzard and some woman appears and says, "This way." No. I've seen this before because I've read my fairy tales.
Yeah.
This is ending badly. One commenter said, "It sounds like the Snow Queen wasn't actually evil. She was just some magic woman who was there, and the child hitched himself to her, and she just welcomed him in the cab with her and rode off."
I don't know, because it was tied to the shards of glass. So to me, that's evil. Because he did not see her out the window until the shards were there.
Yes.
And it was like, why was she there in her sleigh for him? It seemed a little bit more orchestrated than just
That's true. That's true. And he thought she was beautiful, but he had the shards of glass in his eye, which made everything inverse.
That's a good
point. So she
point.
could have been hideous.
That's a good point.
Also, when the Snow Queen kissed him at the beginning, he got frostbite. It started.
Right.
And when Gerda kisses him at the end, the frostbite melts away.
Right.
There's an inverse happening here of the kisses.
So there's definitely an element of wickedness.
Yeah. There's a fun fact here that I found. The two ladies that Gerda meets before she found the Snow Queen's palace, one of them is a Sami woman and the other is a Finnish woman. And what this means is that Gerda traveled all the way from Denmark to the Lapland region of Finland. That's where these sorts of women are.
Right.
That's a really long way. Extremely long way.
Yeah, they said in the book it was thousands of miles to get to the Snow Queen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody said that Disney's Frozen, they portray their princess as so pure that animals follow her every command. But Hans Christian Andersen says, "Mine are so pure that her voice can bend reality to fit her needs. And her breath can even turn into angelic warriors to slaughter her enemies." So people might think, oh, the purity of Disney princesses is too much, it's fake. But it's actually Gerda's purity that summons forth legions of angels and melts frostbite.
Yeah, one of the women actually says that, one of the old women. The reindeer's asking her, like, do you have some kind of potion or do you have something that you can give to us? And she says, no, it's Gerda's heart. It's her purity itself that will win him where nothing else can.
Yeah.
That's good.
Someone said, Kay not realizing that he's freezing because he's focusing so hard on a puzzle is concerningly relatable. That's you. No. That's you. You are a puzzle nerd. How many times have I told you this, that if we're ever arguing, I can just throw a puzzle at you and you'll immediately just divert to the puzzle. I can't not put the puzzle together. He's so focused. He doesn't even know he's freezing.
That's funny.
Someone said that they liked the part about the smart, bored princess who gets a husband. It was a sweet, random part of the story.
Oh.
The princess. She's smart, she's bored, she's looking for another suitor. People come to her, but she wants someone to talk literature with.
Right.
And she finally found one, which is kind of like us.
Okay.
We're talking literature. That's what we're doing.
We are, yes. Yeah, I'm a princess on the inside.
Somebody else said that the moral of the story being don't follow beautiful women into blizzards is a lot like Japanese folklore. I didn't know this, but apparently there's Japanese folklore that focuses on following beings into forests and things going bad. Apparently that trope happens a lot in Japanese folklore, so maybe we can explore that at some point.
Well, that also happens in Scandinavian literature, which is, this would fall into that. It's in the very cold areas, but there's a book, Kristin Lavransdatter, where there was this whole mythology of like elves and things that live in the forest, but not Tolkien elves, like, mischievous sprite, danger elves that live in the forest, and you don't follow them. Like they'll beckon and it's like, don't go on your life. Don't go.
Follow. Except this time, the boy followed because she was so beautiful and she kissed him and she has this sleigh and he can't get off of it anyway. He goes with her.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I like the line that he says when he realizes he's in danger. It says, he tried to say his prayers, but all he could remember was his multiplication tables.
Yeah. Sounds like Eustace.
Yes.
In Narnia stories.
Yes.
He's just full of facts and data points, and he's sarcastic and jaded. He knows it all, and nothing's exciting to him.
And he's dead inside.
He's dead, right? Those without imagination,
right?
Without the infinite, without an eye to the divine. Someone else said, it's like Santa, but backwards and also a crime.
Okay.
It's like Santa, but backwards and also a crime. I don't know what that means.
Well, the North Pole, so maybe that's the connection.
And it's a crime.
So maybe we should beware of Santa a little bit more. I don't know.
Someone else said, if you have problems, try crying. This is the best
we'll melt
advice.
Everything. There you go.
Just sit down and cry, or try breathing. Try saying the Lord's Prayer and then crying and breathing and see what happens.
What's neat about this story is that there also seems to be a sort of lotus eater episode in this one as well, which is a theme, that happens in lots of books. The Odyssey, Watership Down, and even Pilgrim's Progress, which I think this story was inspired by the Pilgrim's Progress. And it's when she goes to that old woman's house, the woman who's kind of a witch. She's friendly, but she does some magic. And she doesn't want to harm Gerda. She wants to keep her there with her because she always wanted a little girl. And she makes it nice and pleasant as can be to keep her there. But Gerda has to realize that she can't just give in to this comfortable, easy life. Like she's being distracted from her mission. So that's the theme anytime you run into the Lotus Eater type scenario.
Right.
It's always comfortable, easy to stay, and always a distraction from the actual mission of the story, from the mission that the hero or the heroine needs to complete, needs to, what's the word for mission?
Accomplish.
Yeah, what she needs to accomplish.
Let's do Thumbelina next.
Okay.
Basically a tiny girl the size of your thumb, literally, adventures among creatures to find her place, and eventually a fairy prince. It's whimsical and it's charming, but it doesn't have deep meaning that I could find, and that's okay, I think.
Yeah. The biggest thing I got from it was like loves like.
Right.
She at first was going to have to marry a toad. And, I'm sure there was probably a toad maiden who would have been happy to marry this toad, but Thumbelina was not.
Yes.
And then later she is going to have to marry a mole.
Right.
Who thinks she's great, but she's like, but he's a mole. He's tedious. He hates the sun. I don't want to do this. And it's not until you mentioned the fairy prince that she sees someone, oh, this is someone like me. I can marry this.
Yeah. Everybody else wants to marry her.
Right. Like the Maybug.
Right.
He grabs her and he wants to marry her because she's beautiful. But then all of the other Maybugs hate it so much that they convince him that she's not beautiful.
Yeah.
And he lets her
The lady
go.
Maybugs come and like, what she got we don't have? She ain't pretty? Get out of here, girl. They say that.
They do. Yeah.
And the little fishes come and help her because they see that she's so precious.
Yeah, yeah.
But she has a place. This is something that happened with the ugly duckling. We won't go back over it. But the idea in these tales is that every certain sort of person has their place, and you don't fit in outside of that.
Right.
And you shouldn't try jumping or flipping. And she finds her place eventually with the other little fairies that are her size and just like her and live in teacups and things. And she fits right in.
Yeah.
There's the nightingale. I found this one interesting, a little strange. It's set in China. Basically, a plain bird's song outshines all other things in the Chinese kingdom, in the imperial court, and especially a mechanical bird that's made. A lone fisherman comes upon this nightingale singing and hears its charming song, and somehow the emperor finds out about it because others have been told about the legend of the nightingale goes forth wide and broad throughout the land and across even into Japan. And someone in Japan writes a book about the nightingale as the greatest treasure of all in China. And the emperor gets it and says, well, I've never heard of this. What is this? And apparently one lives in his garden. And he orders that the nightingale appear before him. And so the people go to find the nightingale and they tell it, oh, nightingale, you have been commanded to appear before the presence of the Chinese emperor. And the nightingale's like, well, right away. It's this very obsequious, groveling sort of culture that at least used to, maybe still does exist in the East relative to the West, where no one is commanded to appear before the royal majesty. You have been granted the title of official charmer of the court or something. You have these people who wear long robes and they're all wise, but very begging and scraping and crawling. That's very much present in this. And because of that, I think that's central to the tale. People overlook the natural importance of the bird itself. Someone from Japan, I think it's the Emperor of Japan, sends to the Emperor of China a mechanical bird that looks like a nightingale and sings like one, except it's made of diamonds and jewels and stuff. And because that one sings all the time, nonstop, and never gets tired, everyone just talks about this thing and wants to come hear it. And he puts it by his bedstead at night, and they hear it, and eventually it goes out of works. The little springs and things inside stop working. And the emperor goes on for years not hearing this anymore. And one day he's lying dead, or he's dying on his bed, or so people think. And someone calls for the little bird to come back and sing to him. And the little bird shows back up and sings to the emperor, and life comes back into him. And he recognizes that the bird saved his life, this beautiful song. And now the bird doesn't have to sit next to his bedstead because he won't live in the court. He has to live among the trees, but he'll come back often. So the bird is now free to do as he pleases, but he also comes back and serves the king freely of his own will. I'm not sure of all the lessons to it, but it's a nice story.
Well, I think at the end there, it just shows that natural beauty, it can be imitated, but authenticity is always going to be prized, over the imitation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
I think,
good.
There's a strong vein of thought in the beauty world that fights against the idea of having all of the fillers and filters and, makeup and all of these things and Instagram things in favor of actually highlighting natural beauty. And I think sometimes it can go too far because, it gets to the point of, well, natural is always better, even if it's not pretty. But,
sure.
But I think it is important that natural beauty is a good thing over a contrived beauty,
It's better to have a relationship with a real person than to have a relationship with an AI chatbot.
Right, even though the AI chatbot is perfect.
Always going to tell you the right thing, right? Or some people just virtually online, or some fake women or men online. It's better to have real people, real relationships, real pets, whatever it is, real is preferable.
Right.
And real is going to be there for you when you're suffering. That's what happens with the emperor. Because the nightingale actually says, I need no reward. It was enough to be here to serve my emperor. I don't need anything else.
Yeah. I think it's important also, though, that the nightingale decides not to stay in the palace. Like, it needs its natural state.
Right.
And I think
if you love it, you got to let it go.
no, I just things of beauty are that way. They are most beautiful in their natural state. People are like this. For example, when it comes to climates, certain people thrive in certain climates, and I think it's their natural state. We're made for this. It's what we're suited to. And so the nightingale is suited to the forest. I mean, you can visit other places, but you will thrive best. You'll be most beautiful in your natural state.
Yeah. I have a story about a nightingale. I've told you this before, but I lived in Italy for a while, and there was a period where I was lonely. I felt lonely while I was there. And I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but I had a 3-story villa. That's where I lived in Italy, at the base of the Dolomites, at the very base of the Dolomites. My back door opened, and I could take one step, and the second step is the mountain. I'm walking up now, very up, not a little bit up the mountain. 3-story villa. I lived and slept on the 3rd story of it. That's where my bedroom was. Outside, on the other side of the villa, was a rushing river, crystal clear, that was fed by an underground spring that rose out of the mountain off to my left a little bit. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I could look down and see the rolling hills of northern Italy sweeping away into the distance. But I was lonely, and I remember that perhaps in the springtime, suddenly, one day, a nightingale showed up in my window. The villa that I lived in was built out of stone, 1/2 foot thick stone. I don't remember, a foot thick stone. It wasn't a stick house, it was stone. And so the windows are thick. The nightingale built a nest on the outside of the window portion, where the shutters were like in the middle of the window. So if you imagine it a foot thick and the shutters in the middle. And I remember the thing would wake me up, because I worked at night. So I'd go to bed around midnight or something. I worked from 3 in the afternoon until 11 o'clock at night or something. And I'd go home, go to bed around midnight, and I'd usually want to wake up around 9 in the morning. But that nightingale did not want to wake up at 9 in the morning. It woke up early, and it sang. And the song of this nightingale, I never heard this sort of bird before, because I've never lived in a place with nightingales. The song of the bird was the wildest and prettiest and most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And I remember being awakened by this thing, thinking, this can be nothing other than the voice of God. I wasn't really a Christian at this point yet. Okay? But I remember hearing and thinking, God is trying to tell me something. He sent me an angelic voice.
Wow.
Because this is crazy. And he sent me like a friend almost. I don't know how I'm being sentimental here, but that's how I felt. I was not a Christian at this time. It was just before I became a Christian. But I remember, and the sweet smell of the wood, it was very pungent, and this nightingale singing, and I'm looking out over all of Italy. It was just a very sweet time for me, and the nightingale is central to it because it would wake me up.
Wow.
So I basically had what that emperor had.
Pretty much, yeah.
Since then, I've left and I've never heard a nightingale again in the wild. But I tried to play the sound of a nightingale years later on YouTube, and I heard the song of the nightingale on YouTube, and it didn't sound as sweet. It didn't. I'm sure it was high quality recording, it was a beautiful nightingale. It wasn't as sweet. So just like this nightingale, they had a mechanical bird singing, and you could just hit it on repeat all day long if you want. But it wasn't as good as the nightingale in the window. It just wasn't. It's never going to be.
That's good. One thing that I found funny about this story was that the people in the palace are so civilized. They're so urban that they've become so removed from nature.
Yes.
They're walking out to find the nightingale, and like the minister hears a toad
Yeah.
And he's like, that must be it.
Right.
And the peasant girl's like, it's the frogs, like, keep going.
Yeah.
And then he hears a cow mooing, and he's like, what is that? It must be the nightingale. And, you know, it's just silly. It's like that is a danger, though, to be so urban and to be so focused on the city and royalty and greatness and all of these things, that we cut ourselves off from the blessings that are to be found just by walking outside. We get our priorities wrong in that sense.
I think it's extremely profound that when Jesus, the second person of the Trinity, became incarnate and walked among us, this being of infinite knowledge and wisdom, infinite profound thoughts, he spoke to us with farm animal imagery. Mm-hmm. If you can't conceptualize these very basic things, I mean, Jesus spoke almost in Mother Goose imagery. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of chickens, there's some pigs, there's some cows, there's some sheep. Consider the sparrows, how they neither sow nor reap. Mm-hmm. It's very basic imagery.
Right.
We have to get our minds into that, to think, because, well, if you've never been around sheep or if you've never even thought of them, what impact does that parable have for you? Does that analogy, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me? Huh? What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, voice? Follow me. What do you mean? I don't even know what you mean. I can't tell the difference between a nightingale and a cow.
Wow, that reminds me of a video I saw one time of a girl who had, I think, just moved into a new house, and there was a lemon tree in her yard. Mm-hmm. And her friend came over and she's like, hey, what are you going to do with all those lemons? And the girl's like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't just get a lemon from the yard. She's like, I got to get it from the grocery store. I mean, don't they like do stuff? I mean, I can't just like pick a lemon and eat it. She was seriously baffled by the idea of not getting food from a grocery store.
Yeah.
And it's like, that sadly is probably not unique to her.
Right.
You know, but like that's how far removed she was from nature and life and God's world.
Yeah. Meat doesn't grow packaged off of trees.
Right. Reminds me of another funny scene from a movie. The girl keeps getting shocked by the man and his ways, and he's rough and all that. They're gonna go make food, and he grabs a chicken, and right in front of her he just snaps its neck. And she's like, you know, and he's like, all right, where do you think chicken comes from? You know, she's like, the freezer section. Yeah. And it's like, we don't have to think beyond that.
Yeah.
You know, we don't actually have to be involved with nature in that way.
Yeah.
So
let's end here. There's so many more we could do, but we've gone long. There's the match girl, the little match girl, the steadfast tin soldier, the princess and the pea. That's a fun one. She's so dainty. She can feel a pea at the bottom of 20 mattresses and 20 feather beds. But that's good for now. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this content, please consider supporting the show by subscribing at arslibri.substack.com. Your support enables me to produce this content. Subscribers also get bonus episodes, detailed book lists, and more.